and welcome everybody as we are here for our next weekly Valorant recap for CEA, the Corporate Esports Association. This is week 2 for our show, Moxie, and I am here, Richrad, as the caster with my lovely co-caster and co-host as we do this show now weekly for the remainder of these weeks to come. It's been a fantastic preseason match we had earlier this Saturday, but now we've got another really great one coming up to start this Swiss format.
Finally going to be the actual start of the season, so buckle in, guys. This is where it starts getting real, and those points really start to matter. But Rich, right? They like to force a little bit of a curveball, don't they? They update Valorant extremely frequently, and this week
Yes.
has been no different. I'm sure all of you Rays mains have your opinions on the changes that have come through, but as you know, the person who's normally the teammate to that Rays, I've got to say, pretty happy. Satchel packs aren't gonna blow me up anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we had Sage already get a nerf, which you've already talked about, you can start laying waste to all of those Raze plays and seeing that they get also a little bit of a reduction in their enjoyment levels. But again, we've got a lot to talk about. We do have some of the patch notes, which we'll talk on, as we said. Also, with just some nice overview of what had happened. If you missed the pre-show just this past Saturday, and we are also very grateful to have 2 interviewers coming up today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Moxie will dive into those organizations that are involved in companies. But just before we get into it, we're just going to talk a little bit about CEA. I know this is our second week to do so, but again, CEA is Corporate Esports Association, where they put a modern twist onto the traditional corporate sports leagues versus, softball, baseball, any sort of physical sports. CEA offers a corporate teams a battlefield virtually for them to have an enjoyment, but also fighting for a charity of their choice. Towards the end of the season, all of those proceeds go towards the charities, which is a great thing. And like I said, we'll be talking about the 2 charities specifically for these teams coming up for this weekend, Moxie. And again, we're going into Swiss week 1. We've got a lot of weeks ahead of us, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about those 2 teams coming here.
So we're going to have Google and Facebook, 2 absolute giants in the media world, Rich, and they're going to be going head to head in this best of 1. Remember, it's going to be that best of 1 format for the first couple of weeks. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see some pretty close matches, but it will just be on the 1 map, which is more than likely, well, Bind. We didn't see it last week, Rich. We got to see
Yes.
Split, which was very strange, actually. Bind was one of the first ones banned out, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
But to talk about the teams that we're going to be seeing, Google's Feeling Lucky are going to be trying to get money for the Cancer Research Institute, which works in tandem with the global network of researchers, supporters, patients, and advocates, funding the best scientists to do the most promising research while promoting awareness, sharing up-to-date therapy, information, and inspiring lifelong advocacy for the cause. And I'm sure we all know that is most definitely a worthy one, whereas Facebook, Senator is AOS, they are going to be trying to raise money for Okizu, and that has a mission to help all members of families affected by childhood cancer to heal through peer support, respite mentoring, and recreational programs, supporting families with childhood cancer, which unfortunately needs the money now more than ever because it's situated in California and those wildfires just absolutely decimated that poor charity's home grounds.
And, that's going to drive Facebook here. I mean, they want to for sure help out the charity. I know that they have a lot running on their minds. It's a very, very difficult time to be, persevering through moments like this. But again, with all those people out there from CEA's corporate esports bringing in Facebook, having that as a charity. For those that are also looking for it as well, you can find out the information about those charities. Again, both Cancer Research Institute, which is a very well-known one, but also Okizu, which we also do have. Again, we will have that information up there for you to find out more information regarding it. But yes, so both of these teams going to go head-to-head right now in this week 1, best of 1, as you said. And before we start diving into both of the interviews that we have, again, with the captains, we have a lot of overview when it comes to last week. So we had previously Windows, Microsoft versus Amazon. And we're going to take a look at some of those initial segments that we felt were kind of most highlighted to how the gameplay kind of went. And the first one we're going to look at is more so why Amazon, I think, really struggled to compete against Microsoft. And honestly, it was just really about how they played this pace, Moxie.
They were just extremely passive. Unfortunately, they knew what they needed to do. That was the worst thing about watching these guys. They were 50% there. They tried to go for the smokes. They tried to obscure the line of sight, but once the smokes actually came through, Rich, they just sort of left the area to sit, and that just provided Microsoft all of the space they could possibly want to work with. And when you're going up into that defending area, you can't allow them to just sit in that space and wait for you to walk in. And I think this is actually one of those moments you can see Bad Blood is just all the way in that A bag. They smoke off with the toxic screen, a heaven, and then they put down the paranoia to try and block out Bad Blood, but they just don't move in on the Reyna.
Hmm.
They don't move in on Heaven, they don't move forward, and they think that all of that smoke is just gonna stop Reyna, Bad Blood, from moving forward and having any sort of input in the fight, but she just moves past it and then shoots at them when absolutely no one is contesting her.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, that was one of the things too to touch on a little bit further is where we were talking about Bad Blood. We mentioned that, especially with that specific cut that we had. Bad Blood was really killing it. I mean, probably even you said yourself when we were after the broadcast, like MVP type of plays. And we had, that early interview discussion of saying, really watch out for Pi. But Bad Blood played this Reyna with such really great success and found so much value with it over the course of all 13-0 rounds.
And I mean, I think he actually ended with something like 19 kills, 5 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
When you play the Reyna, you have to go for that aggressive playstyle. You're expected to be top of those kill boards because of all of the access to, survivability that your kit provides. But it is also such a huge risk. You're going to be going
Mm-hmm.
into those high octane situations where you are potentially going to be 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, trying to get that first kill to immediately snowball your way into getting those devours to come through and aid you in the coming fights. But Bad Blood was able to go into those situations, get one pick, and then there was just no pressure on him, and so he was able to safely get out or transition into that second kill, all the while being completely unpunished. And that really showed the guy just did not go down.
Never. I mean, and that's also just what's really nice about Reyna's kit. Like, it's a high risk, high reward. I mean, when you get that early pick like that and you can just snowball, it's so difficult to try and counter it. But the other thing to really, try and counter Microsoft was also just usage of smokes and basically intel denial. And that's really something that Amazon lacked. And we talked about it a lot when it came to the specific composition that they had. They only really relied on the Omen. They brought in a Viper, which was very unique and something that you even mentioned multiple times. It really doesn't provide a lot for this, such as an alternative that could have given so much more. And there was so much riding on the shoulders of the Omen play. And that's what you can see here, like in this next clip that we had, where there is some attempt, especially when it came to the paranoia and focus in the middle, but it really just didn't get much value.
Yeah, they tried to really put their boxes onto that Omen, and it did not work. He goes down extremely early on, and then you're left with absolutely no agent who can really be that initiating tool, no one who can go in for that information. And you just see Mr. Moby. I think we're actually going to be coming back to that play, Rich, because that was a beautiful Cypher Cage placement. But Amazon, they're just stuffed up. They can't move on to this point, and that allows Microsoft all of the time to just set Pi up here on B with that operator. And if anyone from Amazon wants to try and recontest, they've just used up all of their abilities trying to get halfway towards that point. They've got absolutely nothing to
Mm-hmm.
stop someone from going down to that one pick.
And again, to look at it back again, you see the position too when it comes to right about here. You've got that early paranoia coming out to try and blind. But with the positioning that you had here from Microsoft playing these two angles, and also with the fact that you've got Microsoft Office playing a little bit further forward, just almost off that edgeway, it leaves Kupo in such a vulnerable spot, especially when you're by yourself.
And he was left by himself. Microsoft liked to pair up. If they were going for these sort of very aggressive plays, they would always make sure someone was immediately there behind a teammate to get that trade going. For Amazon, they just send Kupo in absolutely lone wolf. And so he goes down. He doesn't actually take anyone with him, and immediately Amazon are at that disadvantage. They weren't able to have that chance to go for the trade to try to even the table. They're just left one player down already.
And when you're down that one player, especially when you lose a player who is able to cause so much denial and vision with either the smoke or the paranoia, that's even more challenging to recover from. And you can see it again, too, as well, when it came into later rounds specifically. And you actually see it repeat again, but this time it was the entire team trying to stick a little bit closer and give some more support with the Omen with a long smoke as well.
But it's the same problem. So they smoke off the Jet, they think that the Lear's done its job, and then they don't move in. And so Pi is able to go, gets the pick, yes, goes down in the process, but this is what I was talking about. Microsoft always had people waiting in the wings to immediately jump into action if that front line fell. And that was something that Amazon just did not have. They put the smoke down, they thought that the Jet would just have gone away. They didn't move in, they didn't contest that operator shot, they lost the player, and they weren't able to get that even trade. They weren't able to try and get that round back into their favor once.
No, and that's something that we saw continue throughout. Again, at that point, we saw that it was a 9-0. There was a lot of difficulty trying to change the momentum for Amazon to really compete against Microsoft. And then it was a hopeful opportunity to take a swap of sides. Because you've said before, specifically on the map, you know, when you're on the defensive side, there's an opportunity to kind of change position. You had this little bit of passive play that was coming out from Amazon that they could be able to maybe hold ground to try and compete against Microsoft. But Microsoft really took a lot of what they have been doing so well, which is this aggression. Also, I would say that Microsoft was a lot more reasonable in learning how their opponents were functioning versus Amazon was. And because of that acceptance in how Amazon was playing on Microsoft's end, they used it very well, especially in this last segment where we had it showing that Microsoft took their strengths and really put Amazon again into a passive attacking position.
These guys really knew their opponents by the end of it. They knew as long as they had that aggression, even if Amazon were on the defense, they could still immediately force this recontest situation. That's all that they're aiming to do. They don't care if they lose a player in the process. Once that spike goes down, Amazon have got to get aggressive, have got to try and contest Microsoft space, and that's something that they've not been able to do this entire series. Microsoft know this. They know that they've got the upper hand. They know that these players are pressured out. It doesn't matter if they're on the classics. They've had the better mechanical skill.
And you can see it with the completion here. It's really putting Amazon into a challenging position. They have to aggress in. You had Shep along with Mad and Moose having the more beneficial angles. The defeat ended up coming through. Microsoft taking that a 13-0 on this map and really demonstrating how, you know, they're a team to be reckoned with as they move through going into these weeks to come. So now going into this, there's a little bit of change of rays. There's an adaptation and, you know, knowing what some of these teams are looking like, what kind of compositions are coming out, all of those other teams that are involved. Again, over 20 teams in Valorant can take a look at this first pre-show. We can kind of get it and surmise an idea of what they're looking to go against. And with how well Microsoft played, they've got multiple teams for Microsoft, but this is definitely one to be looking out for.
I mean, Microsoft, they were just playing the game, but also playing a puzzle. And by the end of it, they had all of those 1,000 pieces worked out. Because not only in that last round did they immediately force that aggressive position as quickly as they possibly could, but they also saw that their opponents were unable to deal with operator play. Because when you play passively, you allow that operator player all of the time to get that setup, all of the time to try and take those first shots without being pressured. And so they moved at certain points when they had the economy to favor it from one operator player to two, knowing full well as soon as you put two of those weapons on the board, suddenly Amazon are facing their worst fears, and they couldn't just counter it by being passive. They couldn't just see where the operator player was, try and get that information out with Kupo on that Omen, and then avoid the map entirely, because surprise, there's two of them. And there was a round where they double stacked the operator players, if memory serves. But as soon as that one started failing, they immediately split them up, both one on A, one on B, and it worked like an absolute charm. Amazon was so passive, were too hesitant to step forward, no one could challenge the operator players, and you just got to, well, pretty much sit up sharp and take aim and fire whenever anyone got towards your area.
Well, and also talking about before anybody gets to the area, before we go into these interviews, we're going to touch quickly on the pro play tip of the week, which we'd like to actually highlight the Cypher Cage, which was on that one specific side towards B. Multiple attempts here we had this, and let's just look at how beautiful this is and how much value this actually gains for the team like this, Moxie.
This chef's kiss. The positioning. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, look at it, Rich. Completely obscures line of sight onto you, but you can still see their feet. Mr. Moby knows exactly what he's doing. That's the sort of Cypher play that you put in a highlight reel. And Amazon, as soon as they see it, they're like, okay, we walk past it. If we try and just brute force our way into it, we're going to be running into the Cypher on the other side, and he's going to have all of that time to shoot us, and we're going to be going in blind. And if we just try to back out, we're still in an alleyway. He can still see our feet. What do? Panic.
And get just completely laid out when you've got an op. Even though the Cypher went down, that op was still ready and waiting by Pi in the back. But like I said, we're going to be heading now over to our interview, so we're going to be going to a brief break to get ourselves situated, as we will be talking first with the captain of Google Feeling Lucky, Ampa Goose is who we'll be interviewing. So don't go anywhere, friends, because we're going to be bringing that to you just a moment. Hello and welcome back, everybody, as we are here for the interview. We are continuing our weekly recap show. We are very grateful to have the amazing captain here from Google Feeling Lucky, who is going to be playing this weekend against Facebook Senator We Use Ads. So, Ampagoose, it is a pleasure to have you here for us to kind of talk and dive into, a little bit about not only you, the company, and then also your expectations going into the CEA tournament. So, how are you doing today, first of all?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, it's a real pleasure. And so, as we've done with the previous interviews before, so tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved as a captain for Valorant, and just that kind of backstory.
Yeah, sure. So, I actually work on the research team on Stadia, and one of my coworkers, I learned about his participation in one of the leagues. I think it was Overwatch, and got
Mhm.
really interested in it through him. And yeah, I've always been a competitive kind of gamer, and I found my team through a Google Discord group, and that's how we
Oh,
first met.
awesome.
Actually leads really nicely into the next question. How exactly did you like gather your team? Is it coworkers that you see on a regular basis? Did you do like an open call? And is it sort of people that you interact with regularly, or is it just a case of you find them all on Discord and now everybody plays Valorant?
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting. There was a Valorant Google Discord that was created after launch or during beta, and there was some buzz around CEA introducing Valorant, and a bunch of people were interested in participating this season, and so a sheet was created, and people put in all their information, and so I met my teammates that way, and some of them I kind of knew beforehand, and just through gaming. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's good that you still have at least some that are like close knowledge. You kind of have a little bit of that gel dynamic of when you're working with a team like this, since it is such a heavily, communicative type of game in general, working with a team of five. Now, kind of going into this, what have you and your teammates now, especially coming across them, gathering them together, what have you done to prepare going into this CEA Valorant tournament and preparing over the course of these next 13 weeks?
Yeah, so I think we've really just begun sort of preparing. We've been screaming regularly, and but I don't think we've really logged as many hours as a team as I would have liked. But as the season goes on, I think we're just going to get better and better. I think we have some real raw talent. A couple of our guys are Overwatch champions from a couple seasons
Oh,
ago,
wow.
and yeah, so I think we have some talent that can get us kind of far. I think, but the teamwork and the chemistry, I think, needs to develop a little bit. Um, yeah.
And this is obviously going to be a tournament that runs for a very long time. 13 weeks means a lot of patch changes. Are you a team that has a lot of flexibility when it comes to agent choice, or does everyone sort of just lock in the one person? And if so, how are you going to be able to deal with all of these patch changes?
Yeah, so I'm that one person who basically plays the same agents repeatedly. Um, but my teammates are great, and they're very flexible, and they follow the patch notes very closely. I'm more hands off, but they're all great in terms of keeping up to date, and figuring out which agents we should be prioritizing. And that's, I mean, back to your previous question about how we've been preparing. That's one of the ways we've been doing that,
Okay.
figuring out which agents we need to focus on for each map, and which maps we should really prioritize, since we don't have time right now to get perfect on each of them. So we've been trying to figure out, what our band should be, et cetera.
Agreed. Well, I mean, you say a little bit that you're kind of like the one trick nature. I'm the same way in multiple games. So we got to know who's your agent of choice that you go for that just really just tickles your fancy when you play the game.
Yeah, I mean, lately it's been Raze and Reina. I mean, not lately, since the
Mhm.
beta,
Yeah.
honestly. And Reina, I'm a little ashamed about, since she's not, the best right now. But I still play her, and she's a lot of fun.
I mean, we did see some Reina last week played quite well. I mean, I would agree with Moxie and me taking a look at it. So you might not find it so far fetched if you want to attempt to try and take it in there. But again, all those little strats and those details, of course, we'll be looking to see this weekend.
Yeah.
Talking of what we're going to be looking to see this weekend, is there anyone on the team that we should be keeping a specific eye out to come out on top of that kill board?
Yeah, probably Howard. I think he's our fragger. He has a decent amount of experience in competitive CS, and he's our highest ranked guy on the team. I think he'll be fragging out.
Okay. Is there an agent of choice for Howard? Is it like something kind of like, again, you said they were kind of flexible, but is there one that they kind of lean towards? Not to take your knowledge of knowing who the opponent's going to be going against, but is there the emphasis?
I mean, I think both teams are going to have a Jet, so it's not going to be a shocker. And he's the top fragger, so yeah, he's probably going to play Jet. We'll see though.
Yeah, Jet one of the things that can come across on top of that kill board if you don't know how to deal with it. And you talked a little bit about preparing all of these specific agents for specific maps. I've then got to touch on the breach. Do you guys favor the breach in your compositions, especially now with the recent patch changes coming through? I think he's got something like, what, 82.5% pick rate at the moment, at least in Ignition events?
Yeah, Breach seems crazy good right now. Those flashes are insane. And we do have someone who, is pretty comfortable with Breach, and he's played Breach a lot since the beta. And we'll see. Unsure if he'll be able to play or not, but it would be very nice if he could.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know you said you didn't have too much time, so we do want to be very respectful of that. We appreciate you giving us the information on you, your team, how it, developed, what you're looking to do, and, really focusing on trying to get that #1 spot to definitely donate some funds to the Cancer Research Institute, which is a great charity amongst so many others. So we appreciate your time. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And like as we said, we're looking forward to seeing what comes from the match this coming Saturday, my friend.
Yeah, well, thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Not a problem at all. Alrighty, and well, for those that are here, we've gotten one side of the story, one background so far. We are going to have a second one coming up here in just a moment, as we will talk to the captain of Facebook, Senator We Use Ads, so don't go anywhere, because we also want to get a little bit of information on their backstory to see what they're going to bring to this weekend. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Like I said, we had one interview already, and now we're going to kick off the second one with a lovely, lovely member of the Facebook Senator We Use Ads. And again, we have our Cyrix that's actually going to be joining us. Thank you so very much. How are you doing today, Cyrix?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of do, same thing, going to learn a little bit about you, learn a little about the company. So tell us how, you and your team, or, well, essentially yourself, how did you get involved being captain in, this Valorant CEA tournament? Like, what fueled you to be that captain and lead your team into this?
Yeah, so, I used to play a fair amount of Counter-Strike when I was younger. Kind of fell out of it as I got older, but lately during the quarantine, I've been trying to find a way to still hang out with my friends in a way that's, social distance.
Mm-hmm.
So we all ended up picking up Valorant, and, I started getting into it. I joined Facebook, and I joined the internal Facebook page for Valorant. And we have a great leader there. He's actually leading one of the other Facebook teams who reached out to everybody. He's like, hey, there's this huge corporate esports alliance tournament coming up. Who would be interested in joining? So we created this large Google Sheets. Everybody put in, their in-game name, their rank, what positions they like playing, and all the immortals and diamonds, they formed a team real quick. The rest of the high diamonds and platinums formed another team, but the rest of us were sitting there with nobody really taking the charge. So I decided to form the team of the remaining platinums and golds, and here I am today.
So you mentioned then that you have a little bit of background in CS. Is that the same for other members of the team?
Yeah. Everybody on our team has a fair amount of experience in tactical shooters. We're not Overwatch champions, but we understand crosshair placement and positioning. So I don't expect us to be shut out or anything.
Well, there you go. Got to be confident. But still, I mean, when you have so many people like that, it's a really great opportunity for someone like yourself to step up and, take that opportunity. Because at this point, I mean, you're doing it for, of course, a great cause. I mean, we talked a little bit before, the charity that you're going for. So for those that are also looking to support as well, if you'd like, you can talk a little bit about the charity too, since I know there were some really unfortunate events that happened as well for others that might be interested in knowing about it.
Yeah, so our team is supporting Okaizu. They are a cancer camp that helps families of children with cancer. They're located in California, and unfortunately, they just had their camp burned down during the recent wildfires. I heard about that through my girlfriend because she used to volunteer there as a counselor, and I decided this would be a great opportunity since we were looking for a good charity to support to kind of help give back and help them rebuild.
And it's a really amazing feat to do that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful cause to go through. And, obviously, if you get that money, it's going to go to a wonderful cause. How are you preparing to try and give yourself the best shot at that money? Is there a lot of scrims going down? Do you guys meet up and play a lot on ladder or ranked?
Yeah, so we've been meeting up a few times a week. We actually didn't form our team until a few hours before the deadline closed. So we're still fairly new together. So we're really focusing on our communication and figuring out how each other plays and kind of playing as a team rather than a pug. So we've scrimmed some of the other teams at Facebook, and we've gotten some good feedback and given them feedback. So we're feeling pretty good.
Well, that's awesome though to kind of battle against your fellow teams, because again, Facebook has a large amount. There are a few other companies that have over a dozen, I think, if I remember correctly, from our board. So it's great to see you being able to go against those and really learn from that to try and drive that efforts into growing as a team and what you can see going over the course of these next few weeks. Now, with the tournament lasting as long as it is, what have you have a lot of time to grow because you just signed up just before the cutoff. So what are those things that you kind of really look towards to develop most? Like, what are those things that you've like really heard from your peers that are like the critical things for you to develop?
Yeah, we got some great feedback last night in our scrim about playing too passively on defense. We weren't really pushing up and contesting, like garage or anything. And that allowed our opponents to gain a lot of map control and kind of dictate where the game led. So we're definitely going to be working on that in the future, being a little bit more aggressive on defense. Obviously not pushing out into 5 people rushing, but not giving up map control so easily. I think that's our biggest takeaway.
As someone who feels the same pain of not quite being platinum or immortal, I know when I go into Valorant games, I go for comfort picks rather than meta. Is the same can be said for your team? Do you guys go for those comfort picks, or do you prefer to keep a watchful eye on the patch notes?
Yeah, so we do have a few flexible players. Since we just came together as a team, I started off with having people play what they were most comfortable with, so we can kind of get our team cohesion together. But going forward, especially with patch notes changing, like I used to be a Sage main. I don't play Sage anymore. I've switched over to Cypher. So there's definitely probably going to be changes of new meta changes, kind of like the Breach one. I think Breach is very powerful now. We're definitely going to look into getting him into our lineup soon. But for now, we're still kind of picking the characters that we need, right? You need smokes, you need engagers, you need maybe some sentinels for defense. So we're not basically just saying, oh, have at it. But right now I'm letting my players choose who they are most comfortable with playing.
We didn't mean to laugh outright. It's just we've got Moxi is probably one of the biggest Sage mains ever, and she's feeling the punishment of the recent patch notes. So that's why we had both a mutual outburst a moment there. But kind of talking about that a little bit further going into this. I mean, you've definitely been very evaluating of the patch. You've acknowledged the breach. We talked about that as well, mentioning 85% plus in recent tournaments from what Moxi said. And do you feel going into this now that with it at least being something that people are kind of testing the waters, there's also the raise adjustment that's happened, is there anybody that we should kind of focus on specifically using a certain agent that's going to, you think, really be a staple going into your comp that we see this weekend, or maybe something to really pivot around?
I'm not sure if we have any one player who, is our top fragger or our star player. I think everybody on the team brings their own unique angle, and everybody has the same mechanical skills. So I don't know if there's any one player I would point out or any one character. I'd say just, watch all.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to this, Rich. Thank you so much for coming and taking time out of your day, and for also sharing the same pain as me every single week. It feels every single cast I've done, Rich, anything that's been any sort of Valorant ever since that nerf has come through, it's been mentioned that I'm a Sage main.
I just, it's because I see it in your face right when he says Sage. I see you get the grin, and then I laugh, and then we go in this cycle, and it just happens. It's because I see the grin. It's always on your face when it comes to Sage talk. So
it's the pain I have to spill to cover the tears that I feel inside.
Yeah, it was painful, but I'm having fun with Cypher. It's good to learn multiple characters. If they eventually buff Sage back again, and I start playing it, I'm sure it'll be just like riding a bike. It'll come right back to me.
Well, we definitely appreciate your time, as we said. We're looking forward to seeing you be able to face off against Google Feeling Lucky this weekend. Definitely represent, Facebook and the number of groups that you have a part of Facebook. So we don't want to take up any more of your time. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for spending a little bit of it with us, talking about, your organization, the charity, along with also just the company that you work with your players. And we're really looking forward to seeing how this all pans out this weekend, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Alrighty, friends. As we conclude for the day, that was 2 glorious interviews that we had, starting to give us some insight on what to expect. One team being a little bit more relevant to wanting to stick a little bit more towards what's meta, what's kind of meta, not meta, and then the other feeling that they've got their, star player who they can kind of focus on. So there's a lot going into this weekend, and I'm really interested to see how it's going to pan out, Moxi.
One team that's more than likely going to be coming in with a breach, and another team that just now has confessed that they're going to be trying to integrate him into the conversation at a later date, which suggests to me that he's not going to be in there tomorrow, Rich. So I'm very excited to see how those interactions with those compositions are going to be playing out, especially if it's a map like Split where Breach is just so darn strong.
And you can all see it tomorrow. It's not going to be myself. It will actually be a alternative cast that's coming in to be joining Moxi for that early afternoon. It'll be the lovely Doors. You may not have seen him in Valorant so far for CEA, but he is one to be recognized amongst his other accomplishments that he has in Overwatch and other game titles. So I will be departing for this week, but looking to see you next week as Moxi's going to bring the action tomorrow, and you don't want to miss it. It will be on at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as we get this first week underway. We also, if you'd like to find out more information in regards to CEA, whether if you'd like maybe your company to look into potentially next seasons, along with finding out a charity that you would like to send money to, if you're able to get that number one spot, all the information is below, the links and all the channels for you to find out all the information necessary. And again, there's 7 game titles, so it might not be Valorant that's your forte, or if you know a couple other friends that are just like, hey, you know, we also enjoy these other games, why not look into that too? So there's a lot of opportunity to really give back to these charities who do need it most, as we found out today. So we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It's been a pleasure as always, Moxi. We wish you a great weekend and are looking forward to seeing how this all turns out this coming Saturday. Take care, friends.